So, as Venus is the feminine in the more personal expression, Mars is masculine in the most expressive way. It's that military type of a warrior, soldier, conqueror, hero, superhero. Um, very, very outward, very kind of phallic, masculine type of an energy. Mars is again though it's that driven masculine energy, but it's not the father. Sun is the father. This is more the man or the individual who's charting their course in the world. And it makes sense because Mars is the element of fire. So you see that drive, you see that will. It's the third chakra. We move down from the heart of Venus into the third chakra at the lumbar center. It's the Manipura chakra. The thing about Mars is tamasic. This is kind of the first planet that we've seen that's tamasic. But the tendency with Mars and with tamasic type energy is the potential for destruction. So in Ayurveda, Mars would be Pitta dosha, and when it goes into those destructive type of modes, it's a very, very, very imbalanced pitta. It's pitta in excess, which is leading to chaos, to meltdown, to burnout, to anger, aggression, things like that. Mars is even more pitta than the sun. Mars is the most pitta force in the chart from kind of an Ayurvedic doshic perspective. And again, it's tamasic because without consciousness, it will be prone to violence, aggression, force, even sexual domination. And you see a lot of very, very, very heavy and destructive Mars influences in charts of certain dictators like Adolf Hitler, for instance, and many serial killers like Ted Bundy. Um, Interestingly enough, though, is that there also is typically some kind of an interaction between Mars and the moon in those cases, because the moon has to do with feeling and softness and sensitivity. And if that is overruled by Mars or affected in a negative way or positioned in a certain part of the chart, then Mars just dominates and it just runs rampant. However, those dictators, even some of these serial killers, like part of why they were successful is because of their Mars. It led to their destruction, but it also led to their ability to manifest and their drive and their will. And so that's that third chakra. It's that willpower. And you see it, especially in one of the signs that Mars rules. It rules Aries and Scorpio. And Aries is the ram. I mean, it's the charging full steam ahead, no matter what, doesn't care what's in front of it. It's going to get to its destination. And so that's a beautiful energy, to have. Um, and that's the fire. It does have a little bit of earth secondarily, which is where that tamas comes into play because there's kind of a heaviness to it. Um, and that earth almost does give it like a, not quite, but almost like a pitta kapha type of a constitution. So you have that earthiness. And so if it's balanced, I mean, if someone is able to utilize that fire and to have that earthiness, they are some of the most practical and capable people to manifest things in the world because they have the drive. They have the kind of wherewithal and structure and are handsy with their body and they're of the earth. So you see a lot of people in, trades like manual labor trades with this strong Mars. You see it in a lot of scientists as well, or researchers, people analyzing data, information. A lot of leaders have very strong Mars or Sun typically too. Um, but yeah, people with Mars, they do have the ability to manifest. And so again, there's no good or bad. It's a wonderful quality if it's used well. And these are the energies. They just express themselves on a different spectrum of frequencies. So yeah, Mars is malefic technically. Yeah, Mars is tamasic technically. Yeah, it's fire technically, and it has this tendency. But this is really where the consciousness piece comes into play and how we're in relationship with the energies. There's not just a blanket statement one way or the other. And as I mentioned, Mars rules Aries. It also rules the constellation of Scorpio. Pitta is fire and water in Ayurveda. And so you see that again in the constellation. Aries is fire, Scorpio is a water sign. So you see the reflection of the dosha and the signs and rules again. And then lastly, with Mars, because this is very important, is that it is a natural malefic and it is considered to be a big time malefic. Um, Jyotish would say that Mars is sort of the greatest malefic from like an impulsivity perspective, like in a short term, making rash decisions, living excessively, acting rashly, doing things that put us in harm's way, accidents, injuries, surgeries. It's more of like a short term, but it's very destructive. After this, we'll look at Saturn in a little bit. We'll look at Saturn, which technically is a greater malefic, but Saturn is more long term and slower in its effects, more chronic to a large degree, more subtle, more degenerative. Whereas Mars is very almost like catastrophic, big time malefic force.